Yesterday in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a woman was killed by an ICE officer, and this has very quickly become very both emotional and sort of a national issue. Today, we'll try to take a look at it, try to not make. Well, we'll actually go to the video that I was surprised that the most reasonable comment about all of this came from this person, and people might recognize him. Joining me today is, of course, James Valiant, a former prosecutor for the San Diego County for over 17 years. So I think it would be it's great to have him here to, again, try to take a step back and look at this situation objectively and how we should analyze something like this. So before I go to you, James, let's actually take a look at the video I wanted to play. The video is about a minute and 40 seconds, but I think the whole thing is good that we should watch it. And in case people don't recognize him, this is Tom Homan, the current border czar.
I think the city of Minneapolis is on edge. I think the country is on edge right now. You say the investigation is ongoing.
Investigation just started.
Just started. You say you can't comment on the video, which many Americans are seeing and reacting to.
I'm not going to make a judgment call on one video when there's 100 videos out there. I wasn't on the scene. I'm not an officer that may have body cam video. It'd be unprofessional to comment on what I think happened in that situation. Let the investigation play out and hold people accountable based on the investigation.
I think many members of the public are calling for the same thing, and so they're confused. Maybe you can help me understand how the Department of Homeland Security could conclude so swiftly that this is a, quote, act of domestic terrorism, that this woman, quote, weaponized her vehicle. By the very same standard you describe, this investigation is just getting started.
That's the question for Homeland Security. I'm the border czar. Well, I can tell you what I've seen on my airplane ride here, looking at numerous videos, seeing numerous social media posts, statements from Homeland Security, statements from Secretary Noem. I'll leave it at that.
But as a law enforcement officer,
what good is it to do right now to me prejudge the facts of what happened today without giving law enforcement professionals, whether it's the FBI or the local police there, give them time to look at all the videos, talk to all the witnesses, talk to the officers, and make an educated decision on what occurred today. That's what needs to happen. I've been a cop since 1984. That is the process we must go through.
What good does it to do to prejudge? James, any thoughts?
Every time there is a controversial crime like this, I mean, almost every time, there are irresponsible positions, passionate, emotional positions taken on each side, and each side does not have all the information. In that condition, it is epistemologically and morally irresponsible to take a passionate public position on one side or another. It is morally irresponsible. And so I want to double down on what Homan, the Trump's border czar, immigration czar, says about this. We need statements from witnesses, we need all of the video evidence, we need the physical evidence from the woman's body, we need the physical evidence from the car, we need a statement from the shooting officer that goes into detail and is questioned before we can come to any kind of reasonably certain evaluation of this matter. So first thing I want to do is send a shot across the bow. Now, if someone takes a strong position on one side, I may give them facts on another just to get that, undermined. And I'll do that for both sides at this point. But to take a certain position at this point obviously reflects your pre-existing passionate political perspective.
Yeah, and in that way, I think that is what's different, right? Because if this were police officers, I think you would see, like, because these are ICE agents, if you'd see normal police officers, I think you would see a different kind of emotions going around, mainly because many people believe that ICE, for example, shouldn't even exist, right? But when it comes to, and we would maybe even to some extent agree, right? Or the immigration should look much different.
We should have a reform of the law at the very least. Just for the record here, reasonable minds can differ about what the immigration laws of America should be, but we need to evaluate this situation under existing U.S. law. So long as we have free speech and a peaceful means of changing the system, the way we protest is by writing letters, doing podcasts, doing debates, writing editorials, writing letters to our congressmen, voting. We argue about it. We do not go out and physically interfere with law enforcement operations. Now, one could make the case that it's perfectly moral to violate an unjust law, that itself violates laws. But this woman was not violating immigration laws. She was there to interfere with law enforcement. The existing federal law, constitutionally approved by the Supreme Court, gives ICE the right to do this. Local law enforcement is not cooperative. They're not. There have been many attacks on ICE agents and many demonstrations that have become physical against ICE agents. That is physically jeopardizing the safety of everyone around them. So if the cops are engaged in, say, a heroin bust, and I don't approve of the drug laws, I'm not going to physically interfere with their drug bust because I know all I'm doing is increasing the risk of serious injury or death to everybody involved, including bystanders. So no, physically interfering with law enforcement doing their job, just doing their jobs under existing law, that is the aggressive threat of force. She went there, and this seems to be uncontroversial, from Colorado specifically to interfere, physically interfere with law enforcement's operations, ICE operations in Minnesota. She, according to, there were a bunch of people there calling them Nazis. So there was clearly an anti-ICE protest going on when ICE was doing an ICE raid. Now, President Obama did ICE raids. This is the existing law that the federal government can do. So she was there using her vehicle to block.
Yeah, well, I want to go to we'll go sort of line by line, so we can go into that immediately. The only thing I would bring up is that, yeah, the fact is, as of right now, that's the federal law. ICE has the authority to be there. ICE has the authority to issue arrests, and in all terms, they are basically the police force. The only thing, and something to realize is, you are either on the side of the law or you're not on the side of the law. I don't think there's any sort of middle ground, and you have to accept the consequences, right? If you
Or
are
creating
doing
the physical, who's creating the physical threat? Now, you could, that's the bottom line question here. Now, come the revolution, when we have a censorship and we no longer have free speech and a peaceful means of changing our system, well, okay, then it's open season on the government. We're in a revolution. But until we're in a state of revolution, you submit to law enforcement. You do not resist an officer when they pull you over. And let me put it this way. You do not solve it physically in the field. You wait until we get to court so that the judges and the system can decide whether excessive force was used or if the cop acted properly. We have all manner of protections against the acquisition of illegal evidence or police using excessive force, but we decide these matters in court. To physically resist an officer in the field is to create a physical danger to bystanders, to the officer, to yourself. So you do not physically resist an officer if they're operating within the existing law, whatever we think of that law.
Oh, okay. My sound should be better now. And yeah, one thing I would add, like, once I think it's scary once people start ignoring sort of police or ICE or FBI or any sort of law enforcement agency that has the authority of the state, because we decided that that's the thing we give the power to, right? And yeah, when we decide that this is no longer viable, revolution is really the only way. Like, you cannot really separate it. But yeah, let's go into, well, first we have a few super chat. We have a super chat from Bonnie, thank you so much, and we have a super chat from Jonathan, thank you so much. He says, this was a senseless murder, armed Donald J. Trump brown shirts running wild. And
that is utterly irresponsible.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree that the fact is, this is what we have right now. And as we've said, whenever something like this happens, right? We had the George Floyd thing. The fact is that
this was by no means clearly murder at all. And coming to such strong opinions at this point is both epistemologically and morally irresponsible. I don't care what you think of the immigration laws.
Yeah, because
She was under, first of all, she was committing a dangerous felony by failing to stop her car. She had used her car as an instrument of force against law enforcement by blocking their vehicles. She was ordered to get out of the car. At that point, she had a legal duty to stop the car and get out. Otherwise, she is starting a physical threat to everybody. So even as she's backing out the car and the cop is saying, get out of the car, she's already using her car as an instrument of force, criminally speaking, in an attempt. That's a felony. Just to evade the officer is a felony. And now she'd used her vehicle as an instrument of force, as so many of these ICE protesters have attacked ICE agents. So whatever you think of the immigration law, her duty at that point is to stop her vehicle, to continue to use her vehicle, and vehicles are used more commonly than most things as deadly weapons. And they've been used to attack ICE officers. So she has a duty unless she's in, and if she doesn't comply, she is initiating a physical threat right there. Moreover, the evidence seems to indicate that the shots came through her front windshield. I know there's an angle video that they've slow-moed on social media that shows.
Well, let's actually just go straight to the line by line, just so people
okay.
who, for example, haven't seen
I don't mean to
really have the
contradict
full
my
picture.
dear friend Jonathan Honig, but that is the kind of irresponsible judgment that is just wrong in my view, Jonathan.
So this is, and I think even Bonnie asked it, without more evidence, do we know which side of the line she was on that day, and was she a legitimate observer, or was she interfering, and to what degree?
Oh,
so I think from what we know, let's start.
Legal observer, she cannot evade a lawful officer's order to get out of the car. She had an affirmative legal obligation to stop the car and get out. She did not.
And again, this is not what us to decide. Me and James are not sitting at the jury trial, now deciding what is really happening.
Please withhold your judgments on this until the full set of facts comes out, people.
So what we know is, I think the woman was blocking the access of the ICE, but again, that's what I think we know right now. We might be shown something different, like there's so much more evidence to come in. The officers basically thought it's warranted to arrest her, and it was, if they were interfering with the ICE business, with the business of the police. I think, and James stopped me.
Jeopardizing lives just right there. By physically interfering with law enforcement's operations, she's the one creating the deadly force, the deadly danger, the risk to the safety of others, including innocent bystanders. And if it is true that she was blocking, and I saw video that seems to confirm this, but if it is true that she was already using her vehicle as an instrument of force to interfere with law enforcement activities, then I don't care what you think about the immigration laws. They already have to plug in the wider context too, that ICE officers have been shot at, vehicles have been used to interfere with their operations. That's the context that they bring to it as well. Now she's told to get out of the car.
So now we are at the point where they are trying to arrest her. One of the officers tries to take the door handle and open it, and at that point she backs off a little bit and then starts going further.
Guns it forward, and you could see her tires. This I saw with my own eyes. She was gunning it. You could see her tires spinning in the thing, in the snow. So she's trying to evade. She's committing the crime of evading the officer's lawful order and using a vehicle, which is a deadly instrument, to try and get away when there's a crowd around. Now, most of that crowd were ICE protesters, calling Nazi and what So that context has to be taken into account as well. There are ICE agents all around. The evidence seems to indicate that the shot came through the front windshield, indicating that the shooting officer was in her line of sight as she's gunning the car forward. He doesn't need to rely on his ability to step out of the way. There's evidence, there's one video shot showing the officer, the ICE agent, getting hit by the car. Now, he was lucky enough to get out of the way, but he shouldn't have to rely on that. He has to make a split-second decision as to whether this lady is going to use her vehicle further as an instrument of violence against officers. She had gone there to interfere with ICE operations. So that was her intent.
So I would only just quickly, somebody says that it wasn't a hit. There is one angle of the video where, and people should look it up. And again, we don't have to make a decision right now, right? We
Right
can wait for
now,
more
there's going to
videos.
be medical evidence whether he was hit. We're going to have video evidence, and there's more video evidence that we haven't seen yet. Like Homan said, there's ICE agent body cams. We've already seen a half a dozen different video angles, but one of them seems to show that the guy got hit. But more to the point, the bullets came through the front windshield. The agent had to be in front of her car when she gunned it. If that's true, he had every right to shoot her.
Yeah, and
if that's true, and we will have physical evidence both on her body where she was hit in the angle, the windshield, the car itself, and I saw a picture of the car. It was the front windshield that was damaged. Again, if that is true, see, there's one angle that slow-moed it down, and it blocks the agent who's in front. You can't see him. All you can see is the officer from the side asking her to get out of the car. She backs up, then she guns it forward, and she's shot. You can see the smoke. It's almost immediate when she guns it forward. But if it came through the front windshield, if she was hit from the front, then there's no question the agent was in front of her as she's gunning her car in the crime of evading the officers. Evading officers under any circumstances brings a danger to the public. Under any circumstances.
So yeah, I would just finish it then. Yeah, once she was driving away, the officer near the front of the car shot her. Now I just want to go through a bunch of questions that I've seen people, so try to answer like as shortly as possible because I have a bunch of them. So people are bringing up like how many shots there were, or that, you know, one was from the front, two were from the sides. My understanding is if you are a police officer, if you are in a life-threatening situation, you shoot to kill. You don't try to go for the leg or something, or for the arm, or just once. You are already in a situation where you shoot to kill. That is the proper procedure as far as I understand. We can disagree with that. You know, maybe we want to change that, but that is, you know, what...
Well, no, she's engaged in a dangerous felony of evading.
I mean, just specifically the sort of the shots, right?
Yeah.
When you shoot to kill as a police officer, if you are in that situation.
You
right?
do. You have to. If the officer hadn't tried to jump out, whether he was hit or not by the car, he doesn't have to rely on his ability to jump out of the way in time. She's gunning it and he's in front.
Yeah, I mean, I just mean specifically, according to procedure, specifically how you shoot. This is what specifically the question is.
You shoot to kill, and you shoot repeatedly until you're certain that the threat is stopped. Yeah.
When it comes to, I mean, something that I just had personally, and maybe you can just give a quick comment about the proper procedure, because to me, the idea that you would go in front of the car seems a bit wild. But again, this is something we might see in the actual trial. But if you have any quick comments on that.
The officer has a right to step in front of her car to stop her from evading arrest. They could lawfully arrest her. Once they were starting to lawfully arrest her, assuming it was a lawful arrest, and there's some evidence that clearly indicates it was. I mean, she was going there to interfere with police activity. So once she's under a lawful order of detention, you get out of the car. Any further movement of her car is a danger to everyone around that she's, you know, submitting people to. At that point, the officer has a right to go in front and block her car. But it seems he was already there. But let's assume he stepped in front of her vehicle as she's backing out, say. He has a right to block her from going. And to go forward is now to threaten him in her attempt to escape from a lawful felony arrest. Now, let's assume that he jumped in the front of her to block her path. That only increases her duty to stop. She doesn't have a right to, well, he stepped in my way. No, you were evading lawful arrest. You are now jeopardizing his life. If he didn't step in the way, if he had already been there, for example, which it seems more to me, and I don't know, it seems more to me that he was. But she didn't care if a cop was in front of her. She was going to gun her car to get out of the way, even if it risked his life. Or anyone, bystanders. And by the way, her tires are spinning in the snow. She's not in a high control situation here. She's jeopardizing everyone's safety. And as I say, if the physical evidence shows that, you know, shots came through the front windshield, and they came very quickly, then there was an agent in front of her when she was gunning her car. We will have physical evidence from the cop to see if he had been hit by the car. We have video evidence. We'll have more video evidence. We'll have evidence on her body as to the direction of the shots that came in at her. And we'll have evidence from the vehicle. I've seen her front windshield. She was shot. In other words, there was an agent in front of her when she was gunning it. Even if he stepped in the way, it's her duty to stop for a lawful federal arrest, whatever we think of immigration laws.
Okay, yeah, I want to go further with that. We have a super chat from Enric. Thank you so much. He says the first shot is to the far left side, driver 8 windshield. The remaining 2 shots were at driver side with the agent completely clear. We have covered this. I think when you shoot to kill. That again, I think
if the initial shots came through the front windshield, then subsequent shots through the side are also justifiable. There was an agent in front as she's gunning the car forward.
Yeah, and again, I don't want this seem like me or James. I don't think are like taking a definite stance.
I am not.
Yeah,
I'm begging people. I'm begging. Many people out there are taking strong positions on both sides, frankly, and I would urge them not to come to final conclusive opinions. When making our public position on this, it is epistemologically and morally irresponsible to come down with clarity and certainty until we get all the physical evidence, all the video evidence. And believe me, there will be an investigation. Every time on the state or federal level, where there's law enforcement officer involved shooting, there is a panel that investigates its reasonableness, whether there was excessive force used or not. It's a bunch of, retired, experienced law enforcement officers and judges, lawyers, who consider the evidence carefully. There is also a chance for local, Minnesota could charge the officer with murder, but of course he's under federal protection and their jurisdiction will supersede. There could be civil cases. Her wife or family could bring civil cases against the cop. There will be plenty of opportunities for due process to go through all this evidence with a fine-tooth comb. I'm simply begging people, and many of my friends are taking the side, this is murder, this is murder, this is unjustified. I do not see that by any stretch at this point, and I'm keeping my opinion open, looking at all the factors just to give people enough doubt so that they don't take passionate public positions on this irresponsibly.
Yeah, and oftentimes, even if it is clear, we still believe in the rule of law, right? Like I would say with the George Floyd, or even on the other side, Kyle Rittenhouse. I think in both those cases, I was on the side of how it became. Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted. I think he should have been. And George Floyd, and what's his name?
The officer in the Floyd case.
The officer in the Floyd case went into prison, which I think was also proper. That was my initial thing, but I wouldn't have made this like this is like a concrete thing that I'll never change. It just happened. Derek Chauvin, somebody reminds me. Thank you.
I absolutely agree. I agree with the conclusion of both of those cases, and I would beg people to withhold their judgment until we get all the evidence in this case. Hey?
Yeah, because it could be, right?
Yeah,
because the fact could be like this could be decided in a year or so that this was murder, but the fact is that we have trials for that.
That's why we have the system. Yes,
especially if people are already acting out on I don't know if we don't have really time. Maybe we'll do a follow-up episode about the so-called protests that are happening now and all the reactions outside. But
your right to protest does not involve an ability to endanger the safety of others. That's not free speech.
Yeah, but let's leave that for...
You debate, you do not physically interfere with law enforcement. Look, I am sad that this young woman...
I just, because we don't have much... Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, say that. Yeah, because
I'm absolutely sad. This is a horrible situation. Now, the question of criminal liability is not one we can decide looking at one video or because of our pre-existing position on immigration law.
Yeah, or even a lot of videos, right?
Yeah.
Or like there is so much more evidence that will come to light. Even in upcoming days, right? The FBI or whoever takes over this will be on the scene either probably already now or very soon. Just quickly, we have a few more questions I want to run through. Bonnie has asked, can you resist law enforcement if you are in fear for your life?
No. Well, I mean, the point, let me just give
let's say general. Yeah.
There is a more nuanced answer. Yes, if the officer is just being an officer threatening your life, but in most situations, In most situations, even if the officer is wrong, you submit, or you're creating a greater danger. Now, in fear for your life, what do you mean? If you really think the officer is there just to abuse you and rape you, and there are situations like that, yes, you have a right of self-defense against the officer engaged in a crime like that. But she was there using her car as an instrument of it. Well, let's put it this way, Bonnie. If she had already gone there to interfere with law enforcement activities, using her car to block them in, and then refusing an order to stop, then I'm sorry, that's not, she wasn't in fear of her life yet. And so she had no right, she had to stop her car, get out of the car as she was ordered to do so, or she's jeopardizing the health, safety, well-being of everyone out there on the scene. In this context, it's not clear that the officer was there just to attack her or kill her outside of his normal course of duties. During the normal course of his duties, which this was, you have to obey the cop. We settle matters in court like this. We do not settle the matters of force in the field against law enforcement officers doing their job. And whether you think it was a lawful detention or not is irrelevant. You submit.
We have a super chat from West. Thank you so much. Somebody says the fact that people's opinions on ICE affects their opinion on if it was a self-defense or not shows you people are stupid. I would only say that the other side is doing exactly the same thing. The other side is automatically on the ICE guy's side. He did nothing wrong, and can as passionately as people saying that this was murder, as passionately the other people are saying that this was self-defense. So trying to act.
That is precisely correct. Yes.
So just a few more questions, and again, try to answer as quickly as we can. A lot of people are like bringing evidence, as in like slow down video, and I don't like the way people are putting this into context, because fact is, from the time the officers have left their car to the time the shot was fired was, I think, like 7 or 8 seconds. Trying to like from this point of view, like 1 day later, trying to, with all the stuff we have, trying to tell the officer like what was the exact thing that should have been done is, people should really think about what
they must be.
Actually,
the officer's reasonableness of action must be just judged based on the totality of the circumstances, right? He doesn't need to rely on his ability to jump out of the way of her car before making a split-second decision. And it was a split second, I mean, seconds, half seconds made the difference here. And so he has to make a split-second decision, and the law of the United States correctly and reasonably understands that. Will not, if there is a reasonable cause to think that there is a threat of great bodily injury or death, then he can use deadly force. And I'm not going to second guess an officer's split-second decision if that is objectively the factual context. Look, I want immigration reform. I think that there's immoral things going on. I don't think immigrants get proper due process, but the existing US federal law is where my problem is with.
Yeah, and again, we might do more episodes on this because I think there's a lot of other things going around. One more thing, many people are doing this apparently, or there is one video of a doctor or somebody saying, hey, I want to go help her, let me go, and the police was stopping her. My understanding is you don't allow random people in a scene of crime, even with something like that.
Okay, someone comes up to you and says they're a doctor. Most of the people there present were ICE protesters. This was a crime scene. You do not let someone from the street walk up and say, hey, I'm a doctor. No, you have to wait for the paramedics. That's the situation that was created. Now, whose fault that situation was, we'll decide later from the investigation and in court. But they don't have an obligation when someone walks up and says, hey, I'm a doctor, to let them interfere with a crime scene. Even if it means, someone potentially saving their life. She was dead pretty quick. But in any case, no, you don't let random people from the street walk up and interfere with a crime scene, even if they claim to be a doctor. And it turns out they are a doctor. I mean, how do you know they're a doctor? It's just a person walking up who may have been part of the ICE protest. No, they have no obligation to let some random lady walk up, say, I'm a doctor, and she has to then be allowed to do whatever she wants to do, having claimed to be a doctor. No.
Then one more thing I have is many people comment on the ICE agent who killed or who shot her, that he left the scene. My sort of
Oh, good.
understanding, yeah, I just want to say, my understanding would be if like that is going to be a tense situation anywhere, he's not going to flee the borders or something. I think we still believe in like the trial, they like the police officers know what he is. Him being there might aggravate situation even more,
They were
especially if we
already
know. Yeah.
calling them Nazis. Before the shots ever happened or she ever tried to leave, they were calling him the Nazis. If the guy was the shooter and they could perceive it, and then I heard the shot, murderer, murderer, they get him for his safety the hell out of there. That's not fleeing the scene of a crime. That's getting someone who might himself be attacked the heck away. That's perfectly appropriate as well.
And I guess so. Few things that I was thinking about covering is the reactions from the Trump administration and the Minnesota side, as well as the way even talking about the ICE itself. But that's maybe for another episode since we
Utterly
don't have time.
irresponsible for politicians to be ginning up more disturbance and violence. But I'll tell you, the local law enforcement have an obligation to let ICE do their duty. Yes, and local law enforcement should be protecting ICE agents equally as everyone else. Yes, and they have to understand that the federal law is valid. They can't turn their backs if an ICE agent is being assaulted. No. And saying, get the F out of Minneapolis, like the mayor said, that is just irresponsible. That's sedition. Now, on the other side, if you have all these right wingers, including members of the administration, opining with passion about what it is, this was that, what we
Yeah,
say
domestic
is, let's
terrorists and stuff.
wait. Yes, domestic terrorism, whatever, however far you want to characterize this. Let's wait for the investigation, please, people, before taking passionate, definitive public positions on this. It is not clear cut right now. Epistemologically and morally, we are obliged to wait, or your publicly stated opinion, in my view, is irresponsible. There seems to be enough evidence for me to say this officer may well have acted perfectly reasonably.
And again, just sort of wrapping up, what we'll see is in the next days, we'll see FBI or the local police or somebody looking into gathering evidence,
Yes.
talking to witnesses. In the next month, I assume, or the next couple of weeks, we'll see if the prosecution thinks they have a case against the police officers. We'll see either no, hey, yes or no, and then within a year or so, we'll probably see the trial and the result. If not, we might see a civil trial from the
We
the
will learn
family.
a whole lot more, I promise.
So, James, any last thoughts with this one?
No, but as usual in cases like officers accused of excessive force, I would beg everyone to hold their powder dry, wait until all the facts come out. If you cannot see that there's a potential on the other side, then I do question your judgment. We submit to law enforcement. We don't settle our physical disputes with cops in the street, in the court, until the revolution. Come the revolution, when it's open season on government officers, okay, that's one thing. But we still have mostly free speech in this country. We still have a peaceful means of changing. We do not interfere with law enforcement operations as they're happening. Obama did ICE raids. Trump did not invent this. We're not at a time of revolution. And the evidence indicates that the officer may well have been acting reasonably. But until I say so with clarity, I'm going to wait until I have all the evidence. And I beg everyone to do the same.
Yeah, and anything people brought up in the chat, I'm sure we'll see that as brought up as evidence or considered as evidence. So we thankfully, like, we have the rule of law, we have the court system to deal with these things, so individual people don't
It was
have
a
to.
horrible tragedy.
Yeah.
Cops don't want to hurt and kill people. To think that the cop went out there to hurt and kill this lady on purpose is the strange assumption. But what a tragedy. It is a terrible thing that happened. That we can say.
Only say a bit where we'll be talking about Israel keeping Khamenei in power. Apparently, there are some secret signals or sort of in secret chats signals from Israel saying that they won't attack Iran during the protest. So that's going to be one hell of a topic as well.